Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevet, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason. Welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway, and we are super excited today, aren't we, Scott?
Heck yeah, we got a great guest for you guys today. Can't wait.
That's right. That's right. We're going all the way over to D.C., over in Maryland, right by D.C., and we're going to have the great Dr. Adrienne Charles. Doctor, how are you, Adrienne? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we are blessed.
Awesome.
Yes, yes. So, shall we get started?
Absolutely.
Adrienne, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name is Andrienne Charles. I'm a family practice doc, retired, and I've been a doc for about over 20 years. And I guess just the toll of being on my feet and so on, it just, I had to step away from clinical medicine. And I really missed taking care of my patients, and it was not an intentional retirement. So I wanted to do something else. I was looking for my second act, and someone suggested life coaching. So I did that, and I really enjoyed it because you work with the conscious mind and thoughts and how thoughts can create your reality. And I got some real change, but I could never, there was a resistance in me that kept me from putting myself out there. You know, the social media, the just telling people what I'm doing. And I could never figure that out. I went to different coaches for myself to do that. And I couldn't break through. It was like something was missing. It was not fully aligned, but I couldn't figure it out. And then I was in a group of physicians who were looking at entrepreneurship, and I met another physician who had to leave clinical medicine and stop taking care of patients for medical reasons. And she was a hypnotist, like a hypnotist, and I was just fascinated. And so the group of us, it was a small group of us, we were supposed to talk about each other. But once she said what she did, nobody cared about anybody else. We were like, tell us all about you. And so it was just fascinating. And it resonated with me particularly because I was in the same situation trying to find the next the next thing for me. And so I asked her many questions. I reached out to her. We had a few conversations. And so I decided to explore hypnosis and Googled it. And, it's just a mishmash of you can learn it in a weekend. You can do this. You can take this 1 year class. This is, so I didn't know how to discern. I knew I didn't know enough to know how to pick. So I went on like Quora, I went on Reddit, and I found these different opportunities. And actually, I'm going to step back. I was going to there's something called hypnodontics. And I met a woman who did this in
Mm-hmm.
Great Britain, and that was her business. But she's not a physician. When she came here, she learned that physicians would not work with her and dentists wouldn't work with her because she didn't have any clinical training. And so she did a pivot, and now she was teaching physicians how to help people within surgery, to have surgery without anesthesia, and go into the work with dentists and things like that. And I guess maybe it was ego, or it just didn't sit right with me that I didn't want to be on the sidelines like a helper. And so I didn't do it. And her training was on Zoom. And she said, it's the same. And I said, I'm sure it's the same, but I really want to be in person. So I turned that down, decided to find a live training. And so I went on Quora, and there were, they talked about the Jacquins, Ledakowski, and Mike Mandel. And I just looked for who, those were the people that everyone said the best, if you're going to do it, do this. And everyone said if you do Mike Mandel's training, Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, that gives you the broadest education and you can springboard into anything from that. So I found them, and I took their course and took the exam, became certified, and I've been taking going one foot and putting one foot in front of the other till we're here today.
Well, Adrienne, you seem pretty young to be retired. Let's start with that. But let's go on further and let's just say something else here. So you were a doctor, and then you moved into a life coach, and then you moved into hypnosis. So it seems to me that you've always had a heart for helping people. Where did that come from, and when did you first discover that, hey, this is what I'm about? I'm here to help people. What's that all about?
Well, my mom always told me as a little kid, and maybe that was her own form of hypnosis, I don't know, that I always wanted to be a doctor. But I think most people want to help, but trying to find the best path um, is the challenge. And I guess maybe watching, Medical Center with Chad Everett and Marcus Welby, Dr. Kildare. See, now you know.
Now we know.
So when did you have that moment, that aha moment, like, man, you know what? I really am going to be able to change lives. I really am going to be able to make a difference. When did that come about? What was that like?
That was, well, I went to med school, and I was like much older than my classmates who went from high school to college to medical school. So I had some life experiences, had, many other previous careers, from selling advertising for a newspaper, working in the travel industry, and working. I was actually working for Kuwait Airways when the first Gulf War broke out, and I was on vacation in India, living in an ashram. And because the war broke out, they wouldn't let Kuwait Airways fly. So I got a teletype, look that up, kids, that my job was now the air flying was suspended, so I didn't have a job. So I just stayed in India and at the ashram, and they had a mobile hospital bus, and we would go to different. It was like a big school bus, and they would load it up with medicines and toys for kids and milk, and we would go to different villages, and when we would pull up, it was a whole crowd, so everybody knew that was the stop on that day, and we would take care of whoever came. So I wasn't a physician at all at that point, so I was just assisting, but it sort of relit that spark because I had given up. I had, my pre-med advisor told me I would never get into medical school, so I was just helping, and so I really enjoyed that. And then the ashram also sponsored a cataract eye camp. It was called Netra Prakash, which means light of the eye or light in the eye. And they would remove the cataracts in a villager's eye, just one. And if you wanted to do it again, you have to come the next year. But they did one so they could do as many people as possible. And they would remove that cataract and it would look like a milky contact lens, and they would remove it surgically and replace it with an intraocular lens. And so you didn't need those old fashioned, those thick Coke bottle glasses that people with cataracts used to have to wear, and if you lost them or they broke, you were completely blind. And so doing that was like, yeah, this is what I remembered that I wanted. And there were doctors from Europe, from Canada, US, and they encouraged me because they would just talk to the staff and the helpers, and I told them my story, and they encouraged me to, pursue what I really wanted. And I think that's really how I ended up getting back on track.
Nice, nice. So you actually learned medicine in India.
Well, I was not, no, I went to Case Western in Cleveland, but I was an aide, a volunteer, doing whatever, working. They had a pharmacy, assisting, doing whatever, but it just being adjacent sort of rekindled that flame that had basically, my pre-med advisor just took a bucket of water and just, you know, killed it, and it just relit that flame. And so when I came back to the States, I redoubled my efforts, and actually, I hope she's listening. She's probably not even on the planet anymore, but I got into 5 medical schools. I'd love to like rub her nose in that, but
Nice,
Awesome.
nice. Well, that's interesting with all these travels and everything that you've done. Along the way, you've probably gotten several mentors. So tell us, who are your mentors?
my mentor, well, the biggest mentor would probably be my mom because she supported me, um, and was my road buddy, best friend. And she later told me after I graduated that, my aunts and uncles would say, "Well, what's going on with Adrienne? I thought she was going to medical school." And she would just say, "She'll find her way. It's okay. Don't worry." And I had no idea that this was going on. So definitely my mom, and I guess some other mentors who also steered me. Uh, it was the New York Coalition of 100 Black Women, and I was at City College in Manhattan, and they had every year they had a mentorship program. And regardless of whether you were like going a theater arts major or accounting or business or communication, medicine, dentistry, they had these women who were in executive positions or owned businesses, and they would put you in your mentorship group. And so I was in the medical dental mentorship group because when I came back from India, um, all I knew was I would never get into medical school because my advisor told me that. And I went to my best friend at the time and I said, well, maybe I'll be a nurse. And she hated nursing. And she said, no, everybody bosses you around. And she didn't like it. So I said, well, I'll never get into med school. So maybe I'll be a PA, a physician assistant. So I had actually applied to 4 programs. And while I was in that mentorship program at City College, I got accepted to one. And I told these women doctors, and they said, if you want to be a physician assistant, that's perfect. Be a physician assistant. but don't become a physician assistant because you don't think you're good enough to be a doctor and that's what you really want. So I turned down that place in the program and continued my studies. And so they were the catalyst for where I am now, really.
Nice, nice. So that determination is just admirable. So let me ask you, what would you say to others who would like to find that determination to, follow through with their dreams when they're not quite there and think maybe they're not enough? What can you tell those guys?
I would say take a step because you'll learn something. It may not be the thing, but it'll be a thing, and you will learn definitely what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and very often it will open other doors and opportunities, and you just take the next step. When I tried to be a life coach and I got certified, that was the next step. It seemed like the right step. I went all in on being a life coach, but it ultimately wasn't the thing. But from medicine, I learned how to build rapport with people. You're in a room and I worked in the STD clinic. Someone's going to tell you something they really don't even want to talk about. You got to build that rapport in a fairly quick fashion. So I learned that. And from coaching, I learned that we believe every thought we think. Everything the brain comes up with, we believe that to be the truth when the brain is just a meaning making machine. Something happens and you're like, well, why? Or what does that mean? The brain is almost like ChatGPT, creating some reason, but just to make you feel like it makes sense and sort of close a loop. But sometimes those thoughts are not true. They're just easy for us to accept and move forward and to question those thoughts. And so take a step, any step. You'll learn something. Like I learned how to ask questions. I learned that every thought in my head is not correct, is not the truth, and to question those things. And so for me, that has served me well, and I have offered that to other people who found it of value.
Well, Adrienne, it doesn't sound like you're just taking steps. It sounds like you're running a marathon here. I mean, even from those days when you were a travel agency, you learned rapport, which you end up using later on as you went through your life. So it seems like it's you're joining your steps together, and it's a path. So
Well, it's like Mike Mandel says. Um, he said you can always figure out the breadcrumbs when you go backwards, but you never know the breadcrumbs going forward.
nice, nice. Hey Scott, I'm hogging the show. You got a question for her?
Sure. So tell us more about Black Swan hypnosis.
Well, Black Swan hypnosis, I knew I wanted to start my own business and help people and bring together my medical experience and what I learned from being a life coach with hypnosis because I liked life coaching, but you're dealing with the conscious mind. And the problems are not in the conscious mind because if you could think your way out of it consciously, we wouldn't have any problems. The root is in the unconscious mind, which is where the hypnosis part comes in. And so I want to meld those three things in my business. And I was just one of the things that I do is I listen to Mike Mandel's trilogy. and I would listen to a different one every night because it just creates more and more resources for me. And I happened to go to the local Costco, and I saw a former colleague, and she was working there as a bagger. And I had purchased my stuff, and the cashier was taking the next customer. And she's like, "Hey, Dr. Charles, how you doing?" I said, "Fine. I'm now a hypnotist." And it's almost like when people say they sell insurance. She didn't quite know. Oh, and so, and so I said, "Yeah, it's like when you want to do something and you know you want it, and you say to yourself, well, why can't I just? What's wrong with me? This is something's not right. I need to fix this. I need to fix me. All those kinds of questions, and you're just frustrated. I said, that's where the hypnosis comes in because I work with the unconscious mind to get those blocks out of the way. And I'm focusing on my former colleague. Now, off on this side, the cashier is doing the next person. And then all of a sudden, I hear, uh, she goes to the person she's cashiering. She says, hold on just a minute. And then she looks at me and she says, do you have a business card? And I did not have a business card. And I was like, oh my God, it's people want this. I was like, it was just like an impromptu conversation. And that generated the movement. And so that within 3 weeks, I had a website, I had business cards, and I knew I had a logo. Um, it just sort of came together, and even the name Black Swan Hypnosis, um, it came to me because you're on Facebook and you get these ads. It's not even an ad, like little other platforms or something, websites send you something and it's a video. And it was about this Black woman from the 1800s, I think. And she sang opera. And I think she spoke German and played the harp. And she had this beautiful voice. And it was so beautiful that King Charles' grandmother had her come to the I guess the queen at that time, had her come to perform for the court, and her nickname, they called her the Black Swan. And I said, that's it. And and so that's how I got the name Black Swan Hypnosis. And I was like, God, I really like that name. And so that's how Black Swan Hypnosis was born in Costco.
And
Nice.
I wonder if there's not some subliminal metaphor under there too, as a swan progresses into
Mm,
being the beautiful creature it was to where it started.
right?
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So listen, you got all this stuff going on. The woman asked for your business card. How do our viewers get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on the internet. My website is blackswanhypnosis.com. And I have a business page that I created, and I am a technological Luddite. So I just attribute that to hypnosis because I never had a website. I barely posted on Instagram, or I didn't have a Facebook business page or Google business page when I was a coach. It was just too much to even think about. And I actually created the Google business page and the Facebook business page, and something shifted. So I am starting to post more on Instagram, and I learned how to connect the two, Facebook and Instagram. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm learning, I'm sort of building the plane as I fly it.
Well, it sounds like you're flying it. Do you know where you're going to?
Well, I know the destination.
Nice.
And what's the destination?
The destination is growth and evolution and connection and love.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Scott, you got another question for Adrienne here?
Sure. So you've got a lot of experience with all this going on. It sounds like there's a book somewhere hiding in there.
Hmm. That is, that's a possibility. I hadn't even considered a book. Um, I think once I get my business running, I can, maybe look around and see what's next. But that's certainly something to consider.
Heck yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear your story.
So, Dr. Adrienne, and I'm going to call you doctor here on this one. So, you've earned that. You've worked hard for that. And here's the question. What's the crossover? Between all the stuff you do medically and all the stuff that you do mentally. I mean, first you were working with the body, now you're working with the mind. So, talk to us about that crossover there.
Um, I would say that at some level I was always working with the mind because everyone who goes into medical school has a different reason. I had a classmate who was an engineer, and and so his perspective is completely different. And other people like bench work, working in a lab, and they like tweaking, I'm going to give you an extra milligram of this, or let's switch this. And that was never really about the thing that lit me up in medicine. It was always sitting in the room, talking to the patient, and hearing their story. And once that door closed, the exam door closed, and that mask we all wear out in the world drops, and the patients would, tell me what was going on, I began to hear something that was always in common, that it was these external circumstances, whether it was something at work or family, that was creating some stress. And very often that was what was causing the medical complaint, the issue that brought them in. And sometimes just listening, asking questions would help them to find a path, a way, maybe a crack in what they thought was some insurmountable thing. And so it was always that support and connection between two human beings. That was the part. And I think in everything that I have done, from medicine to coaching to hypnosis, that is the thing that carries over.
Now, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds almost like you think a lot of traditional doctors are too quick to prescribe and not enough to just listen and understand.
Well, I'm an old doc because when I got out of school, it was 1998. When I was in residency, because you have to see patients in residency, you had a clinic day or two per week. Your appointments were 45 minutes to an hour. And so I could recognize my patients on the street. I wouldn't say anything because of confidentiality. If they came to me, I was open to it, but I would not initiate. But I knew them, I knew their family, their circumstances, the work. So I had a very comprehensive global idea of who they were and what they were dealing with in their lives. And so as an outsider, I could make connections with problems they were having or perceived that they have. And as insurance has taken over medicine more and more because they pay. And as my dad used to say, it's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold rules. So the insurance companies rule. And so they determine how much they're going to pay the doctor for a visit. And it got to be less and less. And so the hospitals and the clinics now say, well, I can't, with that smaller amount of money, I have to see more patients in less time. And so it's very challenging to do that. And if you don't have time, if it's not your own private practice where you can set your own rules, if you're an employee, I was always an employee, then you gotta you would have 10 minutes, and that would be the patient would have a 10 to 15-minute appointment, but that was after they were called into the room and the medical assistant asked all the questions and what medicine are you on and weigh you and do all that. That's part of the 15 minutes. And so how deep can you go in, less than 10 minutes? And I think it's just gotten to the point where you you're only left with the treatment, the just trying to cover over or help with the symptoms and not being able to really get to the root. So I can't say that that's what doctors want because I don't think any of us went into medicine for that, but it's the way the system has evolved. I don't even want to use the word evolve, but how the system has changed over time. So I think the patients are frustrated. I know the docs are frustrated. And especially once they put in the EMR, the electronic medical record system, because I used to talk to the patients and look you in the eye and write my notes. But, maybe you can't read my handwriting, or maybe, it became a problem. And so they had this EMR so that, it could be sent electronically. But now, instead of looking you in the eye, I'm over here like this. So what happened? And I have to type, and there's certain questions. There's just no time for the human connection that has taken up a lot of the space and has put a barrier and broken the rapport between the doctor and a patient. Some clinics actually have like a medical scribe, so they're trained and they write, like a transcriptionist or like a courtroom person, and they write down all the things so that you can just be one-on-one focused on your patient. But the way it is now, it's sort of like the Chipotleization of medicine. It's just, and that's the way it is right now. And that's why a lot of docs have left medicine.
I think I tend to agree. I think that we're looking at what I would call a rigged system, and it's rigged because it's hooked up to a cash register. And that said, it's nice to see that you've, need I say, evolved into a system to where it's about human communication and it's about healing and guiding people to healing through the mind as opposed physically, because it's all connected anyway, correct?
Correct. And I'm I see myself more as a facilitator because really my client and my patient, they have all they need, but nothing in our society, on TV and books or anywhere tells us that. And so just facilitating that process so that they find out that they really have all the resources that they need, and just clearing away that other stuff that we've been told is true, clearing that away and getting that connection and learning to trust yourself and to really begin to tune inside, because the information is in here. It's not out there.
That's right. Scott, do you have anything else you want to add?
I would just like to say thank you so much for coming and joining us today and spending time with us. We really appreciate you coming in and sharing all your time with us.
Thank you, Scott. And I appreciate the opportunity to have a real conversation. You know, it's really cool to exchange ideas and to bounce ideas back and forth and learn things from other people. And it's always a pleasure talking to hypnotists, because you don't know. I know one hypnotist used to be in pest control, and now, everybody has all these different, or business, or in music, or science, or engineer, or rock like Mike Mandel, a musician. And, so it's really great to meet these multimodal, multifaceted individuals and learn from everyone. It's just really a cool group of people just to hang out with and interact with.
Well, Adrienne, it's been great traveling down your magical psyche highway, but we're still on the road. We're not through yet because I have another question for you, a big one for you. What's your words of wisdom for our viewers? What words of wisdom do you want to leave to our viewers?
Lead with love. Be open. Be curious. Try it. Course correct. And as a physician, and that's one of the big barriers or obstacles I have as a physician, because we're trained there's only one right way. Because if you just, I think instead of giving this prescription, I'll give that, I see how that goes, you can kill somebody. So we're trained in protocols. There's only one right way. But outside of medicine, there are many ways. And try the way that's right for you. And don't get caught up in perfectionism. What do they say? Perfection is the something of good. You know, do you don't worry about being A plus. Be a B student. You can always get to A.
Nice. Hey, it's been wonderful traveling down your highway. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think this has been a lovely conversation, and I'd love to hear from anyone who just wants to talk about hypnosis, or is interested in learning it for themselves. Any advice, I would be happy to talk. And if you know anyone with chronic pain or stress, anxiety, those are the sorts of things that I work with. Let's just have a conversation and see where it goes.
Nice, nice. Well, it's been a pleasure for me. Scott, you've enjoyed yourself, haven't you?
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent.
It's been awesome.
Great podcast. Okay, guys, and we're glad you're here. Thanks for allowing us to travel down your magical psyche highway, Adrienne, and for the viewers out there, thank you for coming. We're glad you've come. We hope you've enjoyed this show. Please subscribe to the channel, see the podcast again. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, just give us a thumbs down. We don't care. We're just glad you're here, and we hope to see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.